Freeze everything now, not just your thoughts, but the quiet rhythm of your breath, because what unfolded exactly 72 hours ago doesn't belong to the world you can see, touch, or measure. It erupted in dimensions layered behind this reality like veils of unseen flame, places only mentioned in ancient scriptures and whispered about by prophets who understood that the invisible governs the visible. And while you slept peacefully, unaware of the warfare unfolding beyond the limits of human senses, a spiritual event occurred that shattered every predictable law, every assumption about who truly protects you. This story doesn't begin with angels descending nor demons rising, but with something far more human, the obsession of someone you once knew too well. This person, let's call them the desperate one, was not merely someone you removed from your life. They were a parasite who fed on your compassion, a manipulative presence who pretended to guide you while secretly trying to control every step you took. They were the kind who mistake your kindness for weakness, your empathy for naivety, your love for permission to drain your spirit, and when you finally cut them off, thinking that distance would bring silence, they fell into a spiral far darker than you could have expected. Because people like them don't simply let go. They collapse without the supply that once kept their ego inflated. They stalk in silence, revisit memories like rituals, scroll through your life as if examining sacred texts for signs of their relevance. But what they saw in your most recent photo shattered something inside them irreversibly. Because when they looked at that image, it wasn't your face or posture that wounded them. It was the light you carried. The glow that wasn't physical but spiritual, something rare, something ancient. The frequency emanating from your eyes burned them with truth. You evolved beyond their reach. You rose into a space they could no longer pollute. You were radiating an authority that doesn't come from achievements or pride, but from transformation, the kind forged in pain, fasting, prayer, loneliness, and divine alignment. Your image carried the afterglow of someone who survived fire and emerged purified. That kind of light unsettles the wicked, disturbs the narcissist, and enrages the spiritually corrupt. Bear up as they need the illusion that without them, you'd crumble. But your photo proved the opposite. Your existence exposed their mediocrity. Something inside them snapped. A tremor of rage, jealousy, fear, and desperation. Not the kind of desperation rooted in love or longing, but in entitlement, the belief that they should still have access to your soul even after everything they did to break it. They began shaking, trembling as the ugly truth surfaced. You grew without them. You prospered without them. You transcended their manipulation. And that realization ignited a dark obsession that pushed them beyond the rationality. Most people move on. They grieve. They heal. They grow. But narcissists don't evolve. They escalate. When manipulation fails, they reach for control. When control fails, they reach for spiritual shortcuts, seeking power they neither understand nor respect. This desperate one began wandering into corners of the internet, where the spiritually ignorant gather to mimic ancient practices they shouldn't even read about. Forbidden forums, ritual archives, digital grimoires, filled with corrupted fragments of rituals once known only by occultists in forgotten centuries. They dug deeper and deeper, scrolling through curses, incantations, invocations, until they found something that whispered to their ego, a ritual to summon a dark force, the kind mentioned in apocryphal texts, the kind scripture warns humanity to avoid. And here is where creativity and truth intertwine. Such rituals have always existed. From the days of ancient Babylon to the shadowed temples of Canaan, from medieval sorcerers to modern occultists who hide their practices behind usernames and encrypted platforms, humans have always tried to borrow power from darkness when their own souls are empty. But Scripture is clear. There shall not be found among you a consulter with familiar spirits or a necromancer, Deuteronomy 18:10-12. Yet even knowing this, the desperate one followed corrupted instructions step by step, believing they could bend cosmic forces for personal revenge. So, at 3:33 a.m., the hour when veils thin and the atmosphere shifts into a strange quiet, they prepared their room like a twisted temple. Black candles arranged in a pentagon, wax dripping like molten shadows. Symbols drawn in their own blood, symbols they copied without understanding their meaning, unaware that ancient sigils were never meant to be replicated by trembling hands. And at the center of that circle lies the most disturbing detail: your photo. Not merely a picture, but a representation of your spiritual essence placed inside a ritual space infected by malice. They wanted to hurt you, humiliate you, bend you back under their control. They weren't invoking darkness for power. They were invoking it for vengeance. But vengeance is a currency the dark realm collects with interest, and they were unprepared for the price. They believed they were summoning something they could negotiate with, command, or bribe. They had no idea that what answers such calls is not a servant, but a predator. As they lit the candles and whispered forbidden words, words that should never cross human lips, reality began to shift. The temperature collapsed from warm to freezing, as if creation inhaled sharply. Shadows stretched where no light moved. Their breath became visible in the air. They felt something ancient stirring, something older than all empires, older than languages, older than sin itself. They sensed a presence building behind the veil. But part of the mystery is this: darkness never arrives gently. It tears its way through. And as the atmosphere thickened into something unbreathable, the desperate one realized too late that they had opened a spiritual wound in their own home. The ritual was taking effect. A force was approaching, a force they were utterly unprepared to face. And here is where the line between earthly obsession and cosmic revelation converges. What they summoned would be the very force that would expose the truth about you, your protection, your identity, and the invisible mark you carry. Something so ancient and powerful that even the enemy himself recoiled in fear. But that moment, the moment where darkness faced your image and stepped back, comes next. For now, everything stands suspended in that horrific silence as the presence arrives. The desperate one stood inside that twisted circle, trembling, surrounded by symbols they didn't understand, and candles burning with an unnatural steadiness, as if even the flames sensed something ancient approaching. The air thickened with heaviness, thick enough to choke, thick enough to press against the skin like invisible hands. They had crossed a threshold they believed was just symbolic, a harmless little ritual they found online. But spiritual doors do not care whether the one knocking is foolish or enlightened. Once opened, they open fully. And what stepped through that door was not a myth, not a superstition, but a being souled that even the earliest prophets struggled to find human words to describe it. The first sign came in the form of a temperature shift so violent, it felt like the soul was being plunged into icy water. This wasn't a simple cold. This was the kind of cold described by mystics in ancient writings. The cold of spiritual absence, the cold of separation from the Creator, the cold that accompanies entities that exist in perpetual exile from divine warmth. Frost crept along the windows, as if creation itself recoiled from what was emerging. The desperate one's breath came out in clouds of vapor, shaking, ragged, unstable. Then the candle flames rose, not flickered, rose, straight up, 7 inches, 8 inches, stretching unnaturally, defying physics. Their colors warped into green, purple, deep cobalt blue, the colors associated throughout occult history with entities that operate in lower spiritual dimensions. Medieval demonologists wrote about flames, turning these exact hues before manifestations of powerful fallen beings. And even though the desperate one had no theological knowledge, Their body recognized the danger their mind could not comprehend. Every instinct screamed to flee, but their feet felt nailed to the ground, as if the ritual had already claimed ownership of their movement. The shadows in the room began to grow independent of light. They moved like liquid, sliding across the walls in unnatural angles, crawling upward like vines of darkness. The floor creaked as if something heavy, impossibly heavy, pressed against it from every direction. A deep vibration traveled through the wood, up the desperate one's legs, into their bones, resonating through their ribcage like the growl of a distant beast. Then it appeared, not in a flash of fire, not with horns or a theatrical entrance. No, darkness rarely announces itself with spectacle. It reveals itself with pressure, with silence, with the unraveling of natural laws. The presence materialized like a fracture in reality, a distortion, a silhouette that absorbed rather than reflected light. Its form wasn't stable. It shifted between shadow and shape, incomprehensible to the human mind, because humanity's eyes were never designed to perceive something so ancient, so fallen, so steeped in millennia of malevolent intelligence. The desperate one felt their heart drop to the bottom of their chest, as if an invisible hand squeezed it. Breathing became a chore, each inhale shallow, painful, like pulling air through thick syrup. The smell of sulfur and rot filled the room, a scent often described in ancient accounts of demonic visitations. It was the smell of decaying pride, the stench of a being that once stood in light but chose exile, forever carrying the fragrance of its rebellion. And then came the voice. It didn't come from its mouth because the being didn't need one. It came from everywhere at once, from the walls, the ceiling, the floor, and from inside the desperate one's skull. The vibration was so intense their teeth rattled. The tone was ancient, dripping with disdain, layered with frequencies that felt too heavy for the human brain to process. "Do you dare invoke me, insignificant creature?" The desperate one flinched violently, their knees nearly buckling. They tried to answer, but their voice was trapped behind terror, their throat constricted as if gripped by invisible claws. "Do you dare tear me from matters beyond your comprehension?" the voice thundered. The room vibrated like a drum struck by a divine fist. "You speak words you do not understand. You call forces you cannot survive." A tear slid down the desperate one's cheek as they lifted a trembling hand, pointing at the center of the ritual circle, trying to indicate the purpose of their invocation. Your photo lay there, silent, still, glowing faintly under the candlelight, carrying a presence entirely different from the darkness around it. The being followed their gesture, and something in the air shifted sharply. Like creation itself, paused to watch what would happen. The desperate one managed to whisper their intention, broken, desperate words about wanting you destroyed, humiliated, brought back under their control. They didn't even fully say your name. Their breath couldn't form it. But the intention was clear. And that was the moment everything changed. Because as the devil turned toward your photo, expecting another victim, another weak human drifting in spiritual ignorance, he froze. The shadows halted mid-motion. The flames snapped back. The air tightened like a held breath. For the first time in thousands of years, something rippled through his presence. Hesitation. It was like watching a predator step back from prey it thought it understood, suddenly recognizing a venom more deadly than its own. The room pulsed. The desperate one watched, confused, terrified, unable to comprehend why the entity they summoned suddenly recoiled as though facing a cosmic threat. The devil leaned closer, slowly, cautiously, his form distorted, flickering between dimensions as if torn between approaching and fleeing. And for a moment, there was no arrogance, no mockery, only recognition, ancient recognition. "What is this?" he muttered, voice no longer booming but vibrating with something unfamiliar, reluctant respect. He tilted his head, studying the image, sensing the mark you carry, a mark invisible to human eyes, but blinding to beings of darkness. A seal forged not by sin but by suffering survived, purity preserved, purpose fulfilled. That was when the room cracked with the thunder of his next words, a question that shattered the mirror and extinguished the flames. "Where did you get this image?" The desperate one froze, shaking violently, realizing too late that they had invoked something far beyond their capacity, and that what stood before them was not afraid of them, but afraid of you. Silence filled the room after that thunderous question, the kind of silence that feels alive, sharpened, vibrating with an energy that made the desperate one's skin crawl. The mirror lay shattered across the floor, each fragment reflecting the distorted silhouette of the dark presence hunched over your photo. And for the first time since the ritual began, the desperate one realized that whatever they summoned wasn't simply irritated. It was afraid. Not of them, not of the ritual, but of the image lying in the center of the circle. The desperate one stuttered something unintelligible, their voice cracking under the pressure squeezing their lungs. They had wanted power, revenge, domination. They expected the devil to obey, to take their side, to crush you like a fragile object. But what they saw instead was a being older than time recoiling like it had touched holy fire. Confusion flooded their mind. They tried to stand, but their knees buckled under the weight of terror. Somehow, through trembling lips, they managed to force out a whisper. It's just a person I dated." The silence that followed was worse than any roar. The presence straightened slowly like a storm gathering itself, and then a sound like dark, ancient laughter filled the room, not laughter from amusement, but a mocking, bitter, incredulous laugh that echoed off the walls with razor edges. It was the laugh of something that had seen the rise and fall of civilizations, that had watched empires turn to dust, and yet could not comprehend the stupidity standing before it. "Normal," the devil spat, the word dripping with venom. "Absurdly foolish creature. You dare call this one normal? You bring this image to me?" The shadows twisted, recoiling from the force of his voice. It was no longer a stable form, but a storm of darkness spiraling around your photograph, as if unable to get within inches of it without being scorched. And yet, he could not look away. "You have no idea who this person is," he hissed. "None." The desperate one's heart thudded painfully in their chest. They shook their head, confused, terrified, humiliated. They had believed you were just a chapter in their story, someone they could control, belittle, manipulate back into submission. They had no understanding that you were not the supporting role. You were the chosen protagonist of a divine story they had never been qualified to participate in. The devil took a slow, deliberate step back, his movements charged with caution. Even his presence, which moments earlier had suffocated the room, seemed careful now, like a predator recognizing it had wandered into protected territory. He paused, the air crackling around him. Then his tone shifted, deeper, older, resonant with reluctant reverence. "I will tell you something I rarely share with mortals, because you have clearly stumbled into cosmic danger far beyond your comprehension." He turned away from the photo momentarily, addressing them with a cold stare that pierced bone. "Do you know the story of Cain?" The desperate one nodded frantically, though they did not understand why this ancient question mattered. "Yes," the presence growled. "Cain, the first murderer, the one who spilled the blood of his own brother from jealousy. And yet..." He leaned forward, voice rumbling like thunder beneath the earth's crust. "The Creator marked him, not to punish him, but to protect him." He let the weight of that statement fall like a stone into deep water. "That mark," he continued, "was a warning to every being in existence, human, angelic, and fallen." His voice deepened, echoing through the room. "Whoever lays a hand on Cain shall suffer vengeance sevenfold." The words vibrated through the floor, through the walls, through the desperate one's shaking spine. Sevenfold. he repeated slowly, savoring the gravity of the word. Not one. Not equal measure. 7 times. A law written into the fabric of the cosmos itself. He turned sharply toward your photo again. And yet everyone believes that Mark was a curse. Fools. It was protection. A divine warranty. A shield forged in the Creator's own decree. A seal so authoritative that even I, yes, even I am bound to respect it. The desperate one's breath caught. The air between the devil and the photo crackled, warping with invisible force as though a barrier had materialized around it. Now listen carefully, he said, his tone transforming into something almost instructional, almost reverent. The one in this photo carries an evolved version of that mark. The words pierced the desperate one like ice. Not because they have killed, the devil continued, voice swirling like smoke, but because they have survived trials that would have destroyed 99% of humanity. He moved closer to the photo, but the moment his presence neared, the shadows distorted violently, flaring like dark flames, pushing him back. He hissed in irritation, not at the mark, but at the desperate one's ignorance. They have walked through hunger that breaks the will. They have endured betrayals that shatter faith. They have survived loneliness that corrodes the soul. They have faced darkness that births monsters. Then he paused. A long, heavy breath filled the room like a storm gathering momentum. And yet, he whispered, they did not become corrupt. Instead, they evolved. The desperate one watched in horror as the being trembled, not from weakness, but from recognition. When a human survives spiritual fire without losing purity, he growled, they receive a seal, a protection, a mark of the chosen, an invisible warning screaming through spiritual dimensions. His voice shifted into something nearly reverent. Touch this one, and pay 7 times the price. Silence fell again, thick, suffocating, wholly in a way the desperate one did not understand. The devil was no longer speaking about you as prey. He was speaking about you as someone set apart, someone sanctified by suffering, someone whose soul had been forged into something too rare to be touched. The desperate one collapsed to their knees, realizing that the ritual had backfired beyond imagination. They didn't just summon judgment, they exposed themselves to it. The presence circled them slowly, the atmosphere humming with spiritual electricity. You summoned me, he said coldly, to harm a chosen one marked by a covenant older than the world, sealed by trials you cannot even imagine. His form flickered again, retreating from your photo as though approaching it would scorch his essence. Had you known who they truly are, he hissed, you would have fled from their shadow rather than seek their destruction. And then, with a low whisper that sounded like the cracking of the universe, he concluded, they carry a protection not even I dare challenge. The desperate one knelt, trembling on the floor, shattered mirror pieces glittering around them like fragments of a warning they never asked for. The presence looming in the room shifted its attention away from your photo and toward the pathetic human who had dared to summon it. The atmosphere thickened again, no longer with fear alone, but with the weight of cosmic truth preparing to descend. The devil's form flickered, part shadow, part storm, part something indescribable, before stabilizing into a silhouette carved from darkness itself. Listen carefully, the being said, voice dripping with cold authority, because what I am about to explain will redefine the concept of consequence in your mind. He began to pace the perimeter of the ritual circle, shadows twisting beneath him like serpents, slithering in obedience. Each of his steps made the floorboards groan under the pressure of a spiritual gravity far heavier than anything the desperate one had ever encountered. You requested harm against someone bearing the evolved mark of Cain, he continued, annoyance tightening every syllable. So let me explain what that means in practical, catastrophic terms. He paused, and the air seemed to stop moving. The law of sevenfold, he said slowly, is not metaphor. It is not allegory. It is not symbolic justice. It is a law woven directly into the foundation of creation. His tone grew heavy, as if speaking the law required drawing from ancient memory. Every action against a marked one, he said, returns to the sender multiplied by 7. The desperate one blinked in terror, but the devil wasn't finished. "Let me make it simple for your limited mind," he growled. "If I, yes, I, dared to inflict even a small wound on a chosen one, the consequences would ricochet back 7 times stronger, 7 times more destructive, 7 times more catastrophic." He let that sink in before continuing. "So imagine," he said, leaning close to the desperate one's face, "what that means for you." The desperate one whimpered, backing away instinctively until they hit the wall, but the presence followed, unhurried, savoring their growing dread. "You thought your manipulations were harmless? Your emotional games? Your little acts of sabotage?" The devil's voice grew sharper, slicing through the space. "Every tear you caused them, every lie, every seed of doubt, every betrayal, every ounce of pain, each one is now multiplying, accelerating, preparing to return." He gestured toward your photo again, careful not to get too close. "When they awakened spiritually," he said, "the law activated retroactively." The desperate one's eyes widened. Retroactively, meaning everything they had done was now gathering interest like a divine debt. "Yes," the devil snarled as if reading their mind. "Everything." The moment they stepped into their true identity, the protection sealed itself around them like a fortress of light, and every harm you once inflicted became a debt owed to the universe. He circled back to the ritual space again, shadows trailing him like reluctant followers. "Let me break it down," he continued. "You destroyed one opportunity for them out of jealousy. Fine. Expect 7 of yours to collapse. Unexpectedly, brutally, and with surgical precision." The desperate one began, shaking their head violently, but the devil raised a hand, silencing them. "You manipulated their friendships, twisted their social circle, made them doubt themselves." He leaned in until the room itself seemed to hold its breath. "Prepare to watch 7 of your foundational relationships dissolve, until you're left in isolation so complete the silence will feel like punishment." The desperate one's breathing turned into panicked gasps. "You inflicted emotional wounds?" he asked softly, almost gently, too gently. Then his tone snapped like breaking bone. 7 wounds will return, each deeper, each sharper, each impossible to numb." The devil's eyes flickered with a cruel satisfaction. "And that was before you performed this ritual." He pointed at the circle of candles and blood symbols with disgust. "Before you summoned me to harm someone protected." His voice deepened into something ancient and terrifying. "You multiplied the consequences. It is no longer 7-fold." The desperate one froze. "It is 7 times 7, the devil whispered. 49-fold. The air trembled violently, the candles sputtering as if suffocating under the magnitude of such a law. "Your arrogance," he continued, "combined with your ignorance has escalated your karma to catastrophic levels. You have transformed what would have been a spiritual slap into a cosmic avalanche." He stepped forward, slow, deliberate, merciless. "Do you know why I am furious?" he hissed. "Not because you summoned me. Mortals do that all the time. But because you dragged me into this stupidity. You wasted my time. You interrupted matters of far greater importance for a request so laughably impossible, I almost pity you." The desperate one trembled violently, trying to speak, but only broken noises escaped. "I didn't know," they gasped. "I didn't know who they were." "Exactly," the devil growled. "And your ignorance is a stench." He lifted a hand and the desperate one felt a burning sensation spread through their chest. Not physical pain, but spiritual scorching, as if something invisible had been etched into their soul. "You wanted to mark them with harm," the devil said coldly. So now you will carry a mark, not one of protection, one of humiliation." The desperate ones screamed without sound, clutching their chest as the spiritual branding seared deeper. "You will feel terror every time you think of them," the devil continued. "Any attempt at harming them, physically, emotionally, spiritually, will activate that mark, burning through your essence like iron heated in divine fire." He turned away, uninterested in their suffering. "You will be permanently blocked from harming them," he said, "not because I am merciful, I am not, but because touching them invites consequences even I refuse to entertain." He glanced toward your photo again, his shadow withdrawing. "I am protecting myself from the fallout," he said simply. Then he stepped closer to the desperate one and whispered, each syllable a dagger. "You have sealed your own fate." Their breath hitched violently. A final wave of terror washed over them as they collapsed fully onto the floor, shaking uncontrollably, knowing that nothing in their life would ever be the same again. The desperate one lay sprawled on the floor, trembling violently, their soul burning with the newly branded mark, while the devil drifted across the room like a storm cloud, relearning its shape. His presence thickened again, but not with rage this time. This was something colder, older, almost contemplative, as if their pitiful ignorance had triggered a lecture he had delivered throughout millennia, but rarely with such disgust. "You really don't understand," he said, pacing slowly, his silhouette stretching unnaturally across the walls. "Humans believe they grasp the structure of the cosmos because they read a verse, attend a ritual, whisper a prayer, but you—" He gestured at the desperate one. "You operate with the comprehension of a child playing with weapons older than creation." He began to outline the invisible architecture of existence, each word vibrating with the authority of someone who had witnessed it firsthand. "There are hierarchies," he said, "levels carved into the universe by the Creator before you had bones, before your species learned to stand upright. At the summit is the one who formed light with a single command, who breathed stars into being, who crafted laws even I cannot break." The room darkened slightly, as if acknowledging the mention of a power far above the present standing there. "Below him," the devil continued, "stand the archangels, Michael, Gabriel, Raphael, beings whose very names are forged from divine attributes, warriors, messengers, healers. They do not merely obey, they embody aspects of the Creator's will." His tone carried a tinge of irritation, perhaps from memories of battles lost long before humanity existed. "Then come the angels," he said, "legions beyond counting, each with purpose, each with assignments, each woven into the fabric of order." The desperate one watched in silence, barely breathing as the devil traced invisible lines in the air. "Below them," he said, "exist the elemental forces, gravity, time, matter, energy, all serving as the architecture that sustains your physical world." He paused, turning his shadowed face toward the trembling human. "And then come beings like me, fallen ones, exiles, powerful, yes, but still operating within the Creator's hierarchy, bound by laws we did not write and cannot undo." He spat the words, "bound by laws," as though they burned. "And far, far beneath us," he said, voice dripping with disdain, "are humans." He approached the desperate one slowly, each step echoing like a ticking clock. "Most of your kind are spiritually blind, deaf to divine instruction, oblivious to spiritual reality, easy prey." The desperate one flinched, but the devil's attention was already drifting past them, toward your photo still resting in the center of the circle. "But sometimes," he murmured, "humans are born different." His tone shifted. It was no longer mocking, no longer irritated. It held something else, something resembling reluctant awe. "Some souls," he said, "come into the world carrying a prenatal mark, a mission coded into their spiritual DNA. a purpose that predates their first breath. The shadows pulsed with his words, the spiritual truth vibrating through the air like electricity. These rare ones, he continued, are detected from the moment they enter this realm. Heaven recognizes them. Hell recognizes them. Even the earth strains around them, sensing their destiny. His gaze locked onto your photo. And this person, he whispered, is one of those souls. He stepped back instinctively as if getting too close would invite consequences he wanted no part of. They were marked before birth, he said, chosen for a mission your mind cannot grasp, protected with laws older than sin, guarded by forces you will never see, but who have never, not for a second, left their side. For a moment, the desperate one forgot their own suffering, mesmerized by the revelation of who you truly were. But then, something terrifying happened. The devil turned, not toward them, but toward you, toward the unseen viewer. The wall of the ritual room felt as if it dissolved, and his presence reached beyond time and space, addressing not the desperate one, but the person hearing this story right now. Yes, he said slowly, you, I am speaking to you. Your breath may have changed in that moment. Your heart may have shifted rhythm, because his voice carried a precision that pierced through the thin fabric separating narrative from reality. This story is not just about the fool who summoned me, he said. It is about the truth you have ignored for too long. He gestured toward your photo once again, but now his words were directed at the soul reading these lines. You carry that mark, he said. You carry that protection. You carry that mission. The air tightened around his presence, as if the universe itself leaned closer to witness the revelation. Do you know why that desperate person reached the point of invoking darkness against you? He asked. Because they recognized something about you long before you did. Humans with corrupted hearts always recognize divine light when they see it. It threatens them. It exposes them. It reminds them of everything they will never become. He began to list signs, each one resonating like a spiritual echo. Every time someone betrayed you and faced consequences they could not understand. Every time harm intended for you reversed itself and returned to the sender. Every time a door opened for you at the last possible moment. Every time toxic people vanished from your life without explanation. Every time you felt watched but comforted, as if unseen eyes were guarding your steps. Every time you knew deep inside that you had a purpose, a mission, a reason for your existence. He paused. These were not coincidences, he said. They were evidence. Evidence of the mark you carry, evidence of the protection orbiting your life, evidence of the purpose embedded into your soul long before the world tried to break you. You were never ordinary, he said, not a single day in your life. He stepped closer, not threatening, but undeniable. And the sooner you understand this, the sooner you will step fully into the mission you were chosen to complete. The desperate one whimpered in the background, forgotten, irrelevant, overshadowed by the truth unfolding. Because now, the focus was not on the one crawling on the floor, but on the one destined to rise. The room around the desperate one had become a forgotten chamber, frozen in terror, drenched in regret. Their shaking form no longer mattered. The candles, the symbols, the cracked mirror, all of it faded into insignificance compared to the gravity of the revelation now aimed at the one watching. The one whose soul had been quietly glowing with a protection they never fully understood. The devil's presence turned fully toward that unseen observer, the chosen one, and when he spoke, the words felt like they traveled through centuries, carrying weight older than mountains. His voice no longer throbbed with mockery or irritation. It resonated with a truth stripped bare. You were protected, he said, because you are needed. Each syllable hit like a spiritual verdict, both empowering and humbling. You think your suffering was random? He asked. You think the betrayals were unfortunate coincidence? You think the loneliness was just bad luck? His voice dropped into something low, electric. Everything you endured, every furnace you walked through, every night you wondered why the pain didn't kill you, was part of a larger design. He moved slowly, deliberately, like a shadow swimming through dimensions. Chosen ones are not chosen for comfort, he said. They are chosen for purpose. The words struck like thunder, stirring something deep inside the soul listening, something ancient, something dormant, something waiting. Your protection was not given to make life easier, he continued. It was given to ensure you survive long enough to complete a mission that carries consequences beyond your individual story. He raised a hand and the candle flame straightened, almost reverently, as if acknowledging a sacred truth. Look at your life, he said. Look at what you've survived. Hunger that should have turned you bitter. Betrayal that should have turned you vengeful. Loneliness that should have hollowed you into cruelty. Pain that should have twisted you into darkness. He leaned in, the air tightening around the revelation. And yet, you did not fall. The spiritual atmosphere trembled with the weight of those words. You emerged purified, he whispered, refined, proven. Every trial, every wound, every heartbreak flickered through the chosen one's mind, not as tragedies, but as evidence. Your survival wasn't accidental, he said. It was intentional, because when light passes through darkness without becoming corrupted, it becomes something else, something unbreakable. He stepped back, the silhouette of his form warping with the pressure of truth. That is why even I cannot touch you, he admitted, not out of reverence, but out of survival. Because harming someone marked like you isn't just forbidden, it's self-destruction. He glanced toward the desperate one crumpled on the floor, whispering, and that is why those who harmed you suffer consequences they do not understand. That is why their attempts to destroy you dissolve into their own downfall. That is why every scheme collapses, every curse rebounds, every plot implodes. He looked back at the chosen one. The universe protects what it requires, he said. Then his voice softened unexpectedly, no longer cruel, but carrying the weight of unfiltered truth. But protection is not your destiny. Purpose is. He turned, lifting his hand to trace an invisible pattern in the air. The room darkened, and suddenly it felt as though he were pulling aside a veil, revealing something vast, immense, extraordinary. There is a mission encoded into your soul, he said, one that cannot remain dormant. You are a living testimony that light can emerge from darkness, that purity can survive fire, that strength can be born from suffering. He paused. And others are watching you, he whispered. Other chosen ones, souls who are struggling, doubting, breaking. Your survival gives them permission to rise. The revelation slid deep into the listener's spirit like a key turning a long-locked door. You are not just living your own story, he said. You are rewriting spiritual possibilities for generations. You are showing the universe that resilience is stronger than corruption. That purpose is stronger than pain. That divine identity is stronger than every enemy that ever tried to crush you. The air swelled with spiritual gravity. That is why you cannot play small, he said. Why you cannot shrink yourself to make others comfortable. Why you cannot hide your gifts, dim your light, suppress your truth. You were forged to be extraordinary. He stepped closer, and the atmosphere dimmed like stars bowing their heads. So honor the protection you were given, he said. Honor the pain that refined you. Honor the strength you built. Through tears nobody saw. His tone hardened, not with anger, but with urgency. Do not waste your calling, he warned. Do not betray the cosmic investment placed upon your life. He motioned toward the desperate one, still trembling, spiritually disfigured by their own actions. They will never understand you, he said. They chose manipulation over growth, control over authenticity, darkness over transformation. He turned back to the chosen soul. But you, his voice vibrated like the pulse of the universe, were chosen to rise. He took one final step back, his shadow retreating from the photo as if the mark upon you pushed him away. You know now, he said, what even the devil had to admit, that your protection is untouchable, your mission unstoppable, your identity undeniable. A final wave of darkness pulled away from the room, forming a vortex as the presence prepared to leave. And if you recognize the mark you carry, if you accept the law that shields you, if you are ready to step into the mission written for your soul before birth, his voice boomed one last time, then claim your identity. The room snapped back into silence, the candles flickering weakly as though exhausted by the encounter. The desperate one sobbed quietly, broken not by punishment, but by revelation. And you, yes, you, were left holding the truth that would reshape how you walk through the world from this moment forward. Because now you know, you were protected for a reason. You were chosen for a mission. You were marked with authority darkness cannot challenge. And your story is about to change everything. If you feel the mark awakening, if you sense the truth resonating in your spirit, if you know you were meant to rise beyond fear, beyond mediocrity, beyond the limits others placed on you, write 777 in the comments to join the circle of marked, divinely protected warriors. Like the video so this message spreads to every chosen soul who needs it. Subscribe and activate all notifications to receive more revelations about the spiritual laws operating over your life. And share this message with someone who also survived fire and came out shining, because chosen ones recognize each other. Together, we rise.